Hey, Hal here. We've been getting a lot of requests from people to, disassemble and how to clean a 7600. So I'm going to show you how we do that, and it's actually quite easy, and anybody can do it. Just have to. There's a few simple steps of the disassembly, and the 7600 and the later 760s are all the same. They come apart, disassemble, go back together the same parts. The only difference in the two guns is the bolt, and I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to actually do a 760, so you can see how the bolt comes out of the bolt slides. In the 7600, the bolt actually is fixed into the slide, so it's easier to do than the 7600. So I'm going to do easier to do than the 760. So we're going to do this 760 here, completely strip it down, show you how I clean it, and go from there. All right, what I'm going to do first, you've got two pins in the receiver. That holds the trigger assembly in. If you have a magazine in there, pull that out, and then you take a brass punch or a small fine point punch, and they just tap out. And it doesn't matter which way you tap them out. Right to left, left to right, doesn't make any difference. Got to get my spectacles on though. This punch isn't quite long enough to go all the way through. There's one. Maybe this one I got to stick that little screwdriver in and tap it. This one's actually tighter than most of them. Aren't that tight, but when we lube it up at the end, it'll probably help out. Sometimes you get the guns in there. I can feel stickiness on that pin. Don't worry about it. We're going to clean them up when we put it back together. And then all you do once you pull those pins is you pull your trigger assembly out from the back, and you just give it a tip up. And it may have, it goes into a slot in there, but there's a plate. We'll show when we assemble it. This one here is actually not too bad. A little powder residue on it and stuff. And so we got that apart. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the fore end off. Make sure when you use your screwdrivers, you try to get a screwdriver. I've got a whole set of screwdrivers for gunsmithing, but try to use a screwdriver that fits the screw, because if you don't, you'll end up miring all the screw heads and take the blue one off and it'll look like crap. So use the appropriate size screwdriver. So you just pull this fore end screw out. It's kind of long and it's fine threaded. You'll see when it comes wheeling out. Once you get it loosened up, you just pull your slide up. That's what the screw looks like. Then you've got your fore end off. It threads down into this tube. Okay, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take the slide tube out. Now, my buddy Kevin O'Coin over at TGI Creations makes a tool for this. Some people use a punch, a brass punch, but the problem is if you stick a punch through too much and you go to unscrew it and the tip of it hits the barrel, you make a big dig in the barrel. So Kevin's made these so they fit just right against the barrel. It goes right through both sides, so it's hitting two of the holes, and then you just unscrew it. Some of them have a lot of tension on them. You might have to put it in, hold it, take your take your hammer, give it a couple of raps, and that'll loosen that up. And all that does is thread on. I'm going to show you it threads onto a stud. Once you get it loose, if you don't want to stick it through too, it's not going to hurt anything. But definitely to loosen it initially and getting it tight, you got to stick it through the two holes. If you don't, you'll elongate that hole. You'll bend it a little bit. It'll look like crap, and then the tube won't slide on it right. So make sure you don't mire up those holes. And this stud is quite long-winded, so sometimes you feel it really get loose. When they're new, they put Loctite on them, so it drags a little bit all the way out, a little bit of resistance, so you can't do it with your fingers very much. But we'll get her here. Just keep at it. The stud is actually pretty long-winded, but it wants to be because it's what's holding everything together here when you fire. It's holding the barrel on. This is actually, as I get still can't get it. Yeah, there it goes. I can get it now with my fingers. Okay, we got it. So the tube is loose. The slide is loose. Now all you got to do is pop the barrel, pop the slides back a little bit and wrap the barrel a little bit. See how it's loosening up? And there it goes. The barrel is loose, the bolt is loose, and everything will come out together. Kind of hold on to your bolt. I'll show you why in a second. Hold everything kind of together here, because there's a couple of pins you can lose in here. Okay. Once you get the barrel out, you'll see this is the lug that holds it on, that threaded piece. You can take your bolt and bring it out. It just sets in there on the 7600s, or the 760s, excuse me. This has more. The only difference in these and the 7600 is it's got this 19 lugs on the bolt. It's got the same dust cover, plastic dust cover. The older ones have a metal one. And then you're going to say, well, how do I get this apart? It's okay. You just center this up in your slide, this lug bolt, center it in the slide, and all you do is you just twist it like that, and it'll span it enough. It's spring steel. It'll span it enough, and you pop it right off. Okay? So here's your barrel. So we're going to take the barrel off. We got all kinds of junk here. Now, sometimes we're going to take it out, but sometimes people have problems with the rattling. I'm going to show you how the inner workings of this. There's your slides. Here's the tube that holds the barrel on. And when you hear about an O-ring, here it is right here. There's a little O-ring right here, and that's what keeps this from rattling. So if you got a rattly one or an excessively loose one, that O-ring is probably gone. And sometimes that O-ring pops out of the groove and it might break, and then it's laying in here, and when you're trying to pump it, it's real stiff. So that's the cause of it usually. So you've got to disassemble it and then pull this out, and then you'll see if that bad O-ring will fall out. Just clean it up. You can buy those O-rings. You can buy them online. If you go down to your Napa store, Auto Parts, they got boxes of O-rings, and you can probably just find one that fits right. So I don't use a heavy grease on anything. I've got a rag that it's my oil rag. And like I said, this gun is actually fairly clean. But I'm going to clean everything up. Another thing I'm going to do here is I use Vaseline a lot because it's petroleum. And on this O-ring, I'm just going to put a little dab of this Vaseline just to lubricate that right there a little bit. We got that there. We're going to use Vaseline again after that. And then we'll wipe up our slides. Again, this one's pretty clean. Make sure everything looks clean. I take my spray oil, in this case it's Rem oil. Any place there's a thread, I want to lubricate that thread or something. Sometimes that's what happens if you get dampness and any dampness leaks into a threaded spot there. The screw can rust or something. All right, then we take our bolt, and this one here it's kind of cruddy. The firing pin you'll see is a little bit cruddy here. Oh, what I was going to tell you about is in these, especially in these 760s, there's two pins. There's a bigger pin and a small pin. And if you can see the grooves, that's what makes them ride in these grooves. So in other words, you know, that's what turns the bolt when you eject things. So you'll want to make sure. Sometimes these pins are just loose and they fall out. You could lose one on the floor and then you're going to be scrambling. If these are real bad here, I'm going to look at this one. This one's kind of crudted up here. Sometimes you can see this one's here got some carbon on it and it's blackened up. The bolt itself isn't real bad. It's got a little cruddies on it. And then I'm going to try to get it with some spray. If that doesn't do the trick, another thing I like to use, especially when they're real dirty, sometimes they're really dirty and powdery, these bolts, I'll use brake cleaner. Brake cleaner will clean them right up completely. And it'll dry it all out good, inside and out. Like I said, this one isn't particularly dirty. What I am going to do is, it's enough. I'm going to use some bore cleaner. We'll put a little bore cleaner on it. Kind of rub that out a little bit. Get in the goodie bag here. Somewhere in here. The other thing we'll use is this here. I got a lot of junk. This here is actually a chamber brush made for these 7600s. The way you would work that to clean your chamber is it's got the bend made in it. You just push it in there. They usually come with a gun. And you can brush out your chamber with it that way. So I'm going to take a little bore cleaner on this. It's a brass bristle brush is what it is. And I'm gonna kind of scrub this with bore cleaner on that brass bristle brush. Yeah, it's taking it right off. These guns, these 760s are, well, the newest ones would be 1979, so they're old guns. And in the 60s is when they started, when they made these, you know, the later version that had the floor d'Or and looked kind of like the almost identical to the 760s. You can see all that black residue just coming right off of this. It's simple. Doesn't take much. That bore cleaner. Like I said, if you think it's right full of powder and gunk inside, brake cleaner is a really good alternative. Take it outside because it's fumy and just spray the crap out of it, and that'll bleed all that out. Bolts look pretty good. The side here looks pretty good. I can tell it's a lot better already just doing that. Okay, we get that done. Wipe that up. Now, back in the old days, people would take gun oil and fill these bolts up with gun oil and all of that. All that's going to do is attract either dust or crap that goes in there. And then also gun oil, regular old-fashioned gun oil, regular oil. It hardens up when it gets cold. If you ever heard of anybody having like misfires, when it was cold, the gun didn't go off. That's why. They've got oil. People would dump oil right down in that hole where the firing pin is, and then it will congeal up hard in there, and the firing pin doesn't hit the primer. So don't put hard oil in there. The only oil you can use is spray oil, and use it pretty sparingly. In here there was just a little bit of crud around the extractor there, plunger, ejector plunger. All right, we got a clean bolt face there. See how much difference that is? It's nice and shined up there. Everything's working good. Loose, working good. Firing pin's working good. So, see, that's working good there. All I'm going to do is just take a little spray, and I'm just going to put a light spray on that, just to lubricate the slides and stuff, but not much. And then I like to rub it in. You can rub it right in the oil with your hands. Once you got that kind of some oil on it, it's not going to affect anything. You don't, when you're working with this, you don't have salt on your fingers anymore. All right, so we got the tube, the slide, the bolt, those pieces. Now we can take a look at the dust cover there. There isn't much to that. Could have a little on the back of it. No big deal. And our pin, this one looks pretty clean. Again, on that pin, we're going to put a little bit of Vaseline on that bolt screw that holds the fore end on. And I'm going to show you one more place we're going to use Vaseline. Next here, we're going to take the trigger assembly. Same thing, we're going to look down in here. It's pretty darn clean, really. You know, I can see, you can see a little dust and stuff in there. I think pretty much everything here is going to clean up with some spray. So I give it a spray. In here, there's nothing to really that the oil is going to like make everything not work. So we're going to just use a little bit of that oil to clean it up. These old trigger guards, the new ones, if you've got a 7600 made like since the 90s, your trigger assembly, you'll see when you take it apart, the whole thing inside is cast aluminum, and then they've painted it underneath. I don't like them because the paint chips sometimes and stuff. These old ones were made out of actually some kind of a Bakelite plastic, hard plastic, like I think the old toasters and stuff were made out of it. And you can see machine marks. It was actually, took a block of it and they were machined. They don't rust. None of this, nothing about this trigger assembly will rust. So we're going to wipe that up good. Everything here, and I'm going to show you really what parts are we're looking at in here. What's doing it. I push the safety both ways and make sure that's cleaned off. The trigger, there's always get some crap behind the trigger and the trigger guard. Get that dust out, and I'm going to take a little spray and spray it right in under the trigger. We're going to give it a little shot in there, and that's going to lubricate your safety and the trigger down in there. See? And we want to snap the trigger back and forth. I'm going to show you what activates that safety. If you wanted to change, we'll have a little lesson here in changing the safeties. If you're left-handed and you want to change it out, you can buy a left-handed safety, Almonds, Midway, whatever. And the way to change that out is there's a little pin right here. And you do the same thing. You punch that out with a little fine punch. But hold your finger over this hole. You can see the pin down in that hole. And you hold your finger over it. You punch it out most of the way. Hold your finger over it. Pull the pin out. Because down inside, underneath that pin, there's a spring and a little pawl. It's called a pawl. It's a little round-ended piece of metal. And the spring holds it. And that's what holds the safety in place. There's grooves in the safety. And once you take the spring and the pawl out, the safety will just push right out, fall out. You put your left-handed one in, drop the pawl and the spring in, and then you're going to have to take a little fine, like these little glasses screwdrivers, and push it down and push the pin back over, and you're done. You can change it in 5 minutes. This spring over here, and this is your lever. This is your magazine release lever here. You know, when you throw your clip magazine in there, and that's what releases it. It's just activated on a little spring. On this side here, this is your slide. This is what holds your slide. So you see a little lever here on this one. If you know when you go to pull your slide back, you got to release that. So you can see how it works. It drops this down. It's holding the back of the slide. It drops it down. Your slide can come back. You see how that's activated all the way up here. This spring tension is actually part of this, which is the hammer. So if we put this on fire, don't do it unless you hold your finger. Here's the hammer here. This one that's sticking out here is your hammer. So keep your thumb on it, pull your trigger, and there you go. There goes your hammer. And then we can clean that. We can wipe all the crap over off of this hammer. Look it over. Some people complain about the trigger, tight triggers on a 7600. Actually, mine's not like that. But you can clean that up yourself if you want to. You see how it comes in and it hits this. It hits this lever. It's a catch, and you can see here there's a little notch in it right here. And then beyond it, this one's actually kind of rough. You can clean that up with a little emery board or some steel wool or something, which I've got right here. You can, this fine steel wool won't do as good, but you can clean that up here. Get any of the junk and smooth that up. Shine it up, and it'll help you a little bit on your trigger pull. All kinds of places for gunk to get in these. All right. I'm going to put a little dash of that oil right in here on our hammer lever here. And again, like I said, I spray it in and then I wipe the excess off the outside. You know, the oil's penetrating down in all these little joints and stuff. Okay. Always put your hammer back down. All you do is put your thumb, click it back in place, because it's got to be back in place to reassemble. Put it on safety so it doesn't go off by mistake and when you're trying to put it together. So we're looking pretty good in here. Everything looks pretty darn clean compared to some of them. Well, there we go. We'll set this aside for a minute. And then these two pins, remember how they were a little bit sticky? All we're going to do is take this oily rag, and I can see they've got a little, I can feel some like residue on them. That's what was making them stick. a little bit. We'll clean them a little bit, wipe them up with this oil. And these actually go, now that it's apart, you can see the big pin goes through this hole and the little pin goes through this hole. And this is the spring that catches it. When that goes through, that little spring, flat end of it, locks into that, and that's what holds it. This one's got the same thing. It's kind of like recessed in there. All right, there we go there. Now, then we take our receiver and we want to look down inside. There's powder residue in there, but it is, again, not too bad. Mostly where the trigger guide was, I can feel it on there. But since it's a little bit, I can feel it a little. What I'm going to do with this one, again, this here you can take your brake cleaner and you can do the same thing with that. You can take brake cleaner and spray all that, because really now there's nothing in there. It's your receiver and your stock, and that's it. So we're going to take a little brake cleaner on here, and I'm going to just kind of work this inside a little bit, get any of that loose crud off on the inside edges. Twist her around down in the bottom. I can actually take this and put it in where it goes and get a little bit more in the bottom there. Feels a lot better. Doesn't take much of that bore cleaner to get that hardened oil off. All right. And we're going to just wipe it out. Get all the bore cleaner out and the residue of it. Get it out of here. Good wipe. I'm gonna all the way to the back, because there's grooves in there where the bolt slides are and stuff. Stuff my rag in here and send it back and forth. See any loose particles, give them a blow. It's looking pretty good in there now. Pretty clean. If you wanted to take this buttstock off to maybe put a recoil pad, I don't know why you would, but change the wood to synthetic or change the stalks in general. You've got two screws on the 7600s. The 760s have just two screws. Pull the butt plate off. If it's a 7600, it's got two sets. You'll see two screws. They hold a plate, and it's just an internal insert plate. Then you can see the hole that holds the bolt. There's a bolt that's, I think it's a 7/16, and then it's got a screwdriver slot, and it screws right into the receiver. Comes right up like this. It's recessed but countersunk, but it's a long bolt that holds that on. That's pretty simple to do too. All right. Looking good. Make sure this is clean where the bolt lug goes back on. Make sure there's no crap in that one. Okay, now we're ready to go back together. I'm going to put this bore cleaner cap on before I spill it. So, while you get your barrel off though, I'll take another second here. You can check out in your barrel chamber. You can actually see something down in there. Going. have been a piece of dust in there. But again, you can take your chamber brush, scrape that around, get that cleaned out, punch a bore while it's off if you want. And then it's just a matter of going back in reverse. So your bolt's going to set in here. So that's the side you're going to go on. So we're going to put this back together. Oop, we got to put the tube in. So we got our tube lubed up. I'm going to give it a little spray too. I put the Vaseline on, but these get worn. You can see a little bit of wear. This gun's actually in good shape. We're going to put the tube back up in. Whoops. Yeah, with your O-ring goes up. So you just push that back up in your tube. And then you're going to take your bolt. Oops. You're going to take your bolt, and you got to have kind of a third hand for this. The 7600s are a little easier because, like I said, they stay in. They're locked into the slides. But on these 760s, you can see that it's rounded here. That's the way it goes in. It's square on this side. It drops right into your, drops right down in, and it, you know, it doesn't turn there. It drops down into the slides. So then we're going to kind of hold this, and we're going to send this down in the slides. But as we do it, we've got to have our dust cover on. This is where the third hand might come in. You got to put your dust cover, and that goes, there's a round part that goes to the rear. It's a straight round part there, and then that jagged part goes to the front. And you put that over your bolt and send it down. Whoop, dropped it. You send that down, and where it's going to go, it actually fits. As I slide this in, there's a groove right in the top of your receiver, and that's where this dust cover goes. So you got to get the top of that dust cover, there it goes, in that groove as you pull things down in. Oop. There it goes. Okay. Okay, you get it down in there. Once you get it in far enough to clear the barrel, and just get the barrel on the stud, drop it right in. Everything's there except my dust cover fell out. I thought I had it in there, but I didn't. Sometimes if you get that in there, you can get it from the inside, but we're going to see. Oh, clear. I've done it that way before, but oh, I'm going to take it back out, slide it back out, get the dust cover back in. It's in the groove. Somewhere along the way I lost it here. That's it there. Nope. I'm going to put the barrel on after, just like I took it apart. Got it. If your dust cover wants to go back when you pull the bolt back, see, then it's back and forth. There it is. I'll pull this back out a little bit, and I'll put my barrel back in. All right. Now, we get our tube back down, and all we got to do is kind of get this started on there. And again, it's not. Sometimes you can get it with your fingers. I think I got it started with my finger there. Yeah. So it's back on. Since I lubricated everything, it's going a little better, but you can see in there's some red. It might look like rust to you, but what that is, it's the Loctite. It's the Loctite from the factory. If you want to add Loctite to it, you can. If not, I don't do it. There's usually enough. Once you set it back in there, it goes. I'm going to lock it back down. All right. So we're going to get it tight like this, and then usually what I do is I just hold it and I give it a good tunk to seat it. You can tap it with a little hammer if you want, but you usually don't need to do any of that. Take two. Once your dust cover's in place in the groove, hold your thumb down on the bolt to hold it, and we can snap the barrel back in place. Put the barrel on, slide the bolt back enough to the barrel to go into place here. Get it on you. Yep. Hold the bolt in place, and then you can screw your tube back on. Get it started here, and sometimes you can wind it right back on with your fingers, and sometimes you can't. Screw her back on. You'll see a little red on the thread on that stud. It's Loctite. They come with Loctite on them from the factory, and you can add Loctite if you want. I don't usually do it. Usually when you get back in the Loctite and you tunk it shut, they don't have any problem. Once in a great while, if you have, you'll know you have a problem with a loose tube, because your accuracy will fall off. And if it does that, if you can't get it sighted accurately, there's a good chance that this tube had loosened up a little, because when it loosens up, the barrel is loose as well, and that'll cause accuracy problems. Okay, we're going to put the fore end on next. We got our screw, got a little Vaseline, and here's the last Vaseline trick, especially for hunting in the north where there's snow in the woods and snow and rain. I coat this slide tube on the outside with Vaseline. The reason I do that is because what happens is water naturally goes down inside here, you know, on a wet day, runs down in around, and then quite often you'll get one, if you do it a lot, the moisture in between the wood will rust that completely up. So if you put a little Vaseline on it, you don't have that problem. We put that back in. And put the screw back in. Got oil and Vaseline all over my fingers. I got the dropsies. Alright, I'm going to snug this up in pretty good shape because you're banging around with it, pumping it. Give it a good snug. And the last thing is our trigger assemblies back in. So what you're going to have to do, you slide forward, and this, remember, this is your release on your slide. So you got to kind of get this, whoops, upside down. You got to kind of get this in behind here. Sometimes you got to pull it a little forward to start with. Get it. It kind of sometimes fits a little tight. There we go. Slide it up and pull it back into place. And usually once you pull it right to the back, your pins are lined up good. And we can put our pins back in place. Always use brass or plastic on you anytime you're working on these pins and stuff. Just tap them in there flush. And there you go. All clean. See how smooth that works? Nice and clean. Ready to go. So I'm going to put a Big Woods Tracker sight on this. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. First thing you would do, I've already done it. I took the rear sight off, and then there'll be two holes that hold that on, and you got to put plug screws in it. All the barrel holes are the same on the 760 and the 7600. They're these little screws you can buy. They're 6x48. On a 7600, the barrel screws are 6x48. They're all 6x48 on a 760. So where you would mount your scope or your sights, 6x48, same as the barrel. On the 7600, they're 8x40 screws. They're a little bit bigger, and you got to get, they call them shoulder stop screws. So if we're going to mount our Skinner Peep sight, Big Woods Tracker model, that doesn't have an aperture in it. That's why we designed this for the woods, because there's no aperture. You just basically shooting through a threaded hole. So it comes with 2 screws, and just because I'm here, I'm going to take a little Vaseline. Oh. Do it the easy way, and I'm going to put a little Vaseline. So we've plugged these 2, and then you'll plug the forward one. The Skinner Peep covers up 3 holes, the back 3 holes. Now in the package, you're going to get a set of Allen wrenches for this, 2 sizes. The small one is to adjust your sights. The big one is to install your sight. So the rear screw goes in the rear of your rear mount. Okay, so we'll put that screw in. I start out, I don't make it tight, just kind of, I get it down flush. And then we'll put the front screw in. This one I'll snug down that way, snug this way. And then give it a snug this way. Pretty good and snug, but not enough so you think you're going to be breaking the screw off. Okay? And we can wipe the excess Vaseline off with our oil rag. And there we go. Easy as pie. Now, on these, on the elevation on the Skinner, it's a screw. It's the aperture's threaded down in. There's a set screw on this side. You'll loosen the set screw. Turn it. You can stick this through there and just turn it around, and that's how you adjust your elevation. And then on the other side, on the top is your set screw here for your windage. You might need to tap your windage. It's in a big dovetail on here. You can tap your windage either way. That's how simple these sights are. This rifle, I had the barrel cut on it. Some of them, when you have the barrel cut from 22 to 18 and a half, you may need a higher front bead. It's just random. You don't know which one is gonna. So, you know, if this, the way you would know is if you pull this all the way down into the bottom and you're still shooting high, you need to raise the front bead. Seems counterintuitive, but you turn the rear one in the direction you want it to go, and the front one in the opposite direction. So there we go. Assembly, disassembly of the 760s and 7600s. We'll do another one on the earlier version of the 760 because it's kind of totally different the way it It's got a band that hits the barrel, and it's different. But from anything from the 60s on, they all come apart this way, and they're pretty simple. Keep your guns clean, and good luck on the trail.